breaking news. A new casting or creative announcement has got fans in an uproar. Alas, it must be a new day ending with the suffix day. But in this case, the reliably rumored cast announcement is so strange and so ghastly and so out and out weird beyond the worlds that it warrants us bumping our planned episode this week and focusing a whole other episode on this most bizarre and terrible news instead. We are talking about the notion that a female actor, no shade on her, is rumored to be the new voice of Aslan?
Speculative fiction, like no other genre, reflects the creativity of God.
If you look at the scriptures, you're going to have to see that God uses imagination more than rational discourse.
We are supposed to be image bearers for a vastly creative God.
Reading fantastical fiction opened a portal in my imagination for a place other than just a materialistic world.
I experienced the gospel story with the mind of someone who loved adventure and loved the idea of light conquering darkness.
We're wired for stories that reflect how we see the world in ways that are true.
The story is either pointing to Christ or it's pointing to our need for Christ.
Wrong will be right when Aslan comes in sight, and when he shakes his mane, it will be spring again. And this is Fantastical Truth, the podcast from Lorehaven.com, where we explore fantastical stories for God's glory. I am Stephen Burnett, Lorehaven's publisher, and the author of a new science fiction adventure launched last month from Enclave Publishing called Above the Circle of Earth.
And I'm Zackary Russell, and I don't know about everyone else out there, but I believe that we should respect the pronouns of Jesus. And what does that have to do with today's episode 257? Well, by Aslan's mane, is Netflix really casting a lady as the lion?
By Aslan's mane, are they insane? Make no mistake, folks. I thought about trying to be a little middle of the road, kind of a moderate approach on this episode, and we will be. People are dumb sometimes. They make foolish decisions, and we'll call that out. They're still made in the image of God and yada, 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 but I'm not going to spend the whole time disclaiming this. This one has me fired up, absolutely fired up, beyond a lot of outrage about Star Wars or DC or Marvel or Doctor Who or any of that stuff. Zach, Narnia is my original fantasy fandom, and I'd say that's probably the case for 98% of our listeners. And this whole casting announcement has me in an uproar. Meryl Streep in talks to play Aslan. Supposedly not been made an offer yet, but the news got out last week, the day before April Fool's Day. And then I thought it was an April Fool's joke. I think a lot of people did.
That's what I'd hoped. I think we've all kind of gone through the stages of grief, like, denial and then anger, bargaining, whatever.
Well, there's one stage I am not going to get on talk to. No, I'm not going to acceptance. I will not die like this, said Thorin in the halls of Smaug. Absolutely not. No, I'm going to fight it. I'm going to be nice. I'm going to be a peaceful culture warrior poet here. But it's time to go fighting, and I would urge our audience members to join us in this crazy crusade.
When I saw those rumors on, the day before April Fool's, I'm like, maybe this was being posted from, because it was from a news website no one had ever heard of before, let's be honest. And so it's like, okay, this seems ripe for, shenanigans. It's probably coming from the Eastern Hemisphere, someone in an Asian country, for some reason, trolling us Westerners. Because it's April Fool's in their time zone.
Collusion. Yeah,
something like that.
Turns out, by the way, it wasn't April Fool's in their time zone. So not even that explanation worked. Okay, we're going to get to the negative stuff here in a moment. But first off, a mission update at Lorehaven. We got new reviews. Squire of Truth by Jill Williamson posted last week. And then a retro review I did myself of a novel called Ice that is publishing this week. Get those links in the show notes. And if you want more reviews every week, for the best Christian-made fantastical novels we can find, subscribe free at Lorehaven.com. Our first sponsor is Enclave Publishing, coming in hot with the new release, Illuminary by Shauna Schroeder. Glimpse of the past, illuminate the future. Yosari Patagon dreams of becoming an illuminator in a country that values art above all else. Wouldn't it be nice to have a country that values art above all else? Anyway, a lofty goal that finally seems within reach when she earns a position at the prestigious Academy of the Seven Arts. Although Yosari loathes to leave behind her quiet country life, she travels to the capital, determined to live up to her mother's fame as one of Indel's greatest artists. Prince Xander never planned to become king. Indeed, he never wanted to become king. But when his father dies suddenly, he is thrust into the middle of coronation preparations and assassination attempts. With everyone around him in increasing danger, Xander decides to hide in neighboring Indel until the time for him to be crowned king arrives. Posing as an inventor struggling with aesthetics, Xander enlists Yoserai's aid as part of his cover, but soon he suspects she knows more than she should. But when danger threatens and secrets are exposed, entering a competition reputed as cutthroat may be the only way for them to protect everything they hold dear. Enclave Escape presents Illuminary, the new novel by Shauna Schroeder, author of Beast and The Vault Between Spaces. It is now available today, April 8th, wherever fantastic books are sold. Ask for Illuminary at your favorite bookseller or your local library, or order it online at Amazon or enclavepublishingstore.com. It's also available in audio from Oasis Audio. You can get more info in the show notes for this episode 257. Or for all the info about all the sponsors in this episode, go to lorehaven.com/podcast. Zach, I'm ready for Realm Makers. I am so ready for Realm Makers. Hopefully we won't be ranting at Realm Makers about the absurdity of this decision now locked in by the makers of the Netflix Narnia, which is probably almost certainly the magician's nephew, by the way. And that would just be wildly, wildly inappropriate, not to tame inappropriate, wildly inappropriate. But Realm Makers is going to be very, very cool, very appropriate. It is July 18th through 20th this year, 2025. The Realm Makers Expo at the DeVos Place Convention Center in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Now, Realm Makers has been a writers' conference before, and it's still going to be a writers' conference for people who are interested in learning from the best to learn how to be a great Christian fantastical creator. But now it's also a fan conference, which I've been looking forward to for a very long time. An epic gathering of Christian creatives in fantasy, sci-fi, gaming, comics, animation, film, and more. Zach, they put out a list last week. The tickets are now on sale. It's a better thing that happened as of April the 1st. Featured guests at the Realm Makers Expo include Brent Weeks, New York Times bestselling fantasy author, S.D. Smith of the Green Ember series. He's going to perform Green Ember live. N.D. Wilson of the 100 Cupboard series, and also the documentary, the nature God-glorifying documentary Riot and the Dance. Alex Magnus Lehman, the Director of Creative Management at MMO R&D at Riot Games, League of Legends. Then there's Geeks Under Grace, Christian Geeks Central. Peter Franson's been on our show before. And the Main Street Music Show with live sketch, comedy, audio drama. They're going to have exclusive film screenings, a Season 3 preview of the Wingfeather Saga, and a preview of Light of the World. Whether you're into books, games, comics, animation, or film, this is the ultimate event for faith-driven creatives. Tickets are on sale now, and you can learn more and register at expo.realmmakers.com. Zach, have you learned more and or registered for the Realm Makers Expo?
I am going to be there. I will be at the Writers Conference, and this is, I don't know, the 5th or 6th time I've been there. I never know whether to count the 2020 virtual conference. I guess it counts. So I'm looking forward to the classes taught, especially about science fiction. I think those are going to be a lot of fun. And as I've said before, I love that we're going to have a time of worship on Sunday morning. I think it's long overdue, and it's going to be the perfect way to, finish off the conference.
I'm looking forward to it as well. Lorehaven always has a table there, but now, unfortunately, we're not going to have a table there. We're going to have a booth there, which is much larger than a table, and which comes just in the nick of time because, of course, I've got my hardcover sci-fi novel Above the Circle of Earth, and it'll be doing double time along with Lorehaven at that booth. So I'm looking forward to meeting readers, signing some books, and we'll also be hosting some interesting quest stuff at the Lorehaven table. My wife and I were planning that just 1 week ago today, so I look forward to revealing more of that as we lock it in. All right, chapter 1. Let's review who Aslan is, right? Who is Aslan? Do you know him? In The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, arguably the first book of the series, the beavers mention Aslan, and none of the children know who he is, but each of them has a particular kind of feeling when they hear his name. And it works somehow. If you get to a kid early enough, or at least Lewis got to me early enough, where it works, where I still feel something at the idea of Aslan. He is the king of beasts in the land of Narnia, the great untamed lion. He is, in fact, the creator of Narnia and all the worlds beyond. Aslan is supernatural. He is wild. And the movies don't do this title justice. He's also the son of the Emperor Beyond the Sea. One of the best hyphenated titles you could have there. Emperor Beyond the Sea. Aslan has a father. which of course gives rise to the idea that Aslan is an allegory for Jesus. And Zach, I've actually tried to stop being so corrective about this. The well, actually guy on the internet. Well, actually, it's not an allegory. Lewis said so. When people say allegory, I think that what they're really trying to say is metaphor or supposal. They know that Aslan isn't just a picture of Jesus. He actually is in universe Jesus. A good term there is alter ego. Aslan is an alter ego of Jesus. That's why Lewis called him a supposal for Christ. So that's why to talk about Aslan being played by a woman actor, whether or not they shave his mane off, I mean, they could be doing a thing. Maybe we'll talk about this more in a moment where, oh, it's just a woman playing, but he's actually a male lion. No, still unacceptable. Because Lewis describes Aslan's presence as uniformly male and his voice as deep and growly and absolutely masculine. I mean, he basically sounds like Mufasa, you guys. Let's just admit, Mufasa from the original Lion King. James Earl Jones is passed on, but he would have been a fantastic choice for Aslan. And I wonder if maybe Aslan's vocal performance actually inspired how they did the Mufasa in the Lion King. But that means if someone comes along and says, okay, well, we might cast a lady to play the lion, it's technically not slandering Jesus or saying, well, Jesus is actually a girl or he could have been a girl or some nonsense like that. But it's pretty close to saying that. It feels very sacrilegious to the fans of Narnia and very basic to this understanding. Why do we even need to defend this? It is not true. Deadline news article that Aslan is, quote, generally portrayed as male, end quote.
Yeah.
What absolute foolishness, and possibly an insert. Maybe it was an insert by someone trying to get something started, or maybe it was just
I think it was ChatGPT. The whole thing sounded like an AI generated article.
It could have been an AI. I keep forgetting to ask, was this AI generated? Because they don't have the sticker on it. It says made by humans. Now, do they? We still need to get that up at Lorehaven.
Yeah.
Very basic to a Narnia fan's understanding is that Aslan is a he. He is a male. He is the king of beasts, not the queen of beasts. He has a mane. He roars. He rules. And it matters for various theological and natural reasons we don't even need to go into, y'all, because we are a biblical podcast, that God is a he. It matters that Jesus is a he. I mean, he literally is a he. He's a human to this day. God presents as masculine. I don't even like to say that. I feel like throwing up in my mouth. God uses male pronouns for him. So he uses father. And so does Aslan. So does the Emperor Beyond the Sea. Presumably, Aslan is a male. We're not even going to argue for it. It is axiomatic to this episode.
That whole line was such a dead giveaway that the person writing that article probably has no clue about this fandom. And look, that's okay. They maybe this just wasn't their fandom and they have no idea about it. And maybe they think Aslan is like a ghost, but Aslan says, no, look, touch and feel my paws like it is I. Like he's a physical creature. He's not a spirit or something like that. And it's not just a shape-shifting, demigod or whatever from a lot of fantasy that we've seen. So yeah, it absolutely matters what physical form he's portrayed in. Aslan is not a female lion, and that matters very much.
100%. So is Netflix trying to bury the Narnia franchise? What are they thinking? Here lieth the bones of the Chronicles of Narnia visual adaptation, and that leads me to our second sponsor, Here Lieth by Joanna Frank. Almost certainly a better fantasy than whatever they're cooking up right now, at least at this stage of development. Discover a tale of redemption, courage, and destiny. Step into the pages of Joanna Frank's Here Lieth, an extraordinary blend of Christian fantasy and historical adventure. When a young soul faces the journey of life, the forces of darkness and light clash for the ultimate prize, his destiny. With rich, vivid storytelling and a message of hope, Here Lieth invites readers to explore themes of faith, sacrifice, and the power of choice. Perfect for fans of C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien, who might be looking for other stories more like what they were after. This gripping novel will captivate fantasy lovers and inspire hearts. Don't just read a story, experience a journey. Get a copy of this first-in-series novel now and embark on an unforgettable adventure. You can learn more by going to johannafrankauthor.com, JOHANNA frankauthor.com. Links in the show notes, as per usual. Chapter 2, Aslan a Man. Let's go a little deeper into this recent rumor. And Zach, again, This was posted on this one website, Nexus Point News. I'm not sure what that is. It's not really on my radar as a prime spot for getting the movie scoops, but they posted it. They said, "Hey, we got an insider tip. Meryl Streep is in talks to play a female version of Aslan." Now they said a female version of Aslan, paraphrasing their words. That apparently is it's not been repeated by everybody else. But I was annoyed, Zach, and I even posted some, and I posted the surprise Pikachu face, and I said, like, this is the face of everybody who thinks that this was a real headline in just a couple of days when it comes out as being an April Fool's hoax. Well, plot twist, that was actually my face, because a few days later on April the 3rd, Deadline, a little bit more well-known publication there, came out with a headline, Meryl Streep in talks to play Aslan. No offer has been made, but and then Narnia Web, our friends at Narnia Web, that's where I really got started with the internet version of this fandom. They did a recap on the same day, and they also confirmed that. And it was Glumpuddle, who I've quoted before on our Narnia themed episodes, who posted that news. And then he posted on social media later on something I think I can get behind. He said, quote, "I always try to be open-minded, especially at an early stage in the process. But sitting here right now, I feel very deflated. The imagery of Aslan's mane is so important. And the idea of a lion being the king of beasts. And this dropping so close to April 1st is unbearable." End quote. Fans are in grief, meltdown, but mostly uproar. And frankly, Zach, I don't even need to argue this. I'm just going to assume our audience say, go out and make your voice heard. Be respectful. These are image bearers of God. Forgive them, Lord. They know not what they do to Aslan. But sometimes from a distance, they do look like the harpies prancing and taunting while they're shaving off Aslan's mane as he lies bound at the foot of the stone table. This is grotesque that it even got so far as talks. No, there should never have been talks. That idea should have been laughed out of the room as a joke after a few too many tequilas in the writer's room. Stunt casting will accomplish nothing. I'm sure she's a very talented actress, but it's absurd to even think of a woman voicing Aslan. Why? What are you going to do? Pitch shift her? Then what is the point? What is the absolute point of this folderol?
Well, and I just want to bring back Greta Gerwig's own words. This is an article in the Telegraph, January 10th, 2024. And this was when the news was announced, I think originally, that she would be adapting these to Netflix. And she says, quote, "I'm slightly in a place of terror because I really do have such reverence for Narnia. I loved Narnia so much as a child. As an adult, I love C.S. Lewis as a thinker and a writer. I'm intimidated by doing this. It's something that feels a worthy thing to be intimidated by," end quote.
Are you objecting to that quote? Because I like that quote. I think it's good to be intimidated.
I'm saying, did she mean it?
Okay.
Does she still mean that?
Well, sometimes a director doesn't do the casting right. Netflix is the ones who owns the rights. They cut a deal with Douglas Gresham, who led the estate. And so presumably there are other producers and influencers getting their hands into the cauldron here. There's a shift out there, it would seem, deciding to dress someone up in a lion skin who ought not be dressed up in a lion skin. Guys, this is not Peter Pan Broadway play with Mary Martin as Peter Pan. This is not Mayumi Tanaka voicing Monkey D. Luffy from One Piece. This is not a 90s anime. No, Aslan is not a man. He is a male lion. He needs a deep lionish voice. That's how Lewis described him repeatedly in all 7 of the books. Absolute canon violation on the court. All the points penalty. 1 million points from whatever terrible house this is. Certainly doesn't have a lion in its crest. There's no cause to consider any woman at any stage for any reason. What are they thinking? What's going on here?
Yeah, and you raise a fair point. Was this initiated by the director or by the producer or by the studio?
We don't know.
Yeah. You're right. And there's been reports out now for a few months that Douglas Gresham, who is I assume the executive producer on all this, he's fallen ill. And so he's probably not as involved as he would like to be and as we would like him to be, because we know that he did a good job overseeing the 3 movies that were adapted about 20 years ago. And it just feels like such a stab in the back to him and to all of the fans of these series. It really seems like what they're doing, what Netflix at large is doing with this possible decision, is to kind of push us original fans out of the way so they can go find the cool kids.
Modern audience. Yep.
And they can have a mass wider appeal to more feminist, tendencies around the world in entertainment. It seems like they think it doesn't matter, or they don't understand. Now, I was talking with a friend on social media, and I said, I don't think they understand the meaning of Aslan being a lion and being male, being a supposal for Jesus, like he's not just some demigod or something. And a friend of mine gave some gentle pushback. He's like, I think at this point, we can't give the benefit of the doubt because this happens too often to be ignorance or a coincidence. Like, more than likely, what we're seeing with this is an intentional subversion. It's a purposeful act. This is common in all cultural revolutions that happen, is that the revolutionaries deconstruct and subvert the cultural symbols because they're trying to get rid of the old traditions, the old value systems, and they do that by getting rid of the symbols of those old value systems. We have to see clearly about this. Another disclaimer, we don't know there's no word from the studio, but I think the silence is kind of deafening, to be honest. And maybe they reverse course, and that's actually what we hope will happen, and we hope we can just have a good laugh about this later. But, my instinct on this, Stephen, is that this is like so many other movie adaptations, book to movie things we've seen. They discard the source material, not just because they don't understand it or they don't care. I think they are doing it in order to provoke, in order to get rid of what people have always valued, because they think that what we have always valued is wrong. It's a moral worldview. And in this case, it's this ideology that says, look, distinctions, hierarchies, categories, traditional structures, these are all evil. They need to be torn down so that we can all just be equal. What they hate, what these revolutionaries hate, is the sex binary. They want a gender spectrum. That's one of the many things. And so, of course, this leads to just so many horrible and silly ideas. It's really hard to see how they are making this decision with any sort of respect for the fans of these books in mind. Because I haven't seen one fan out there, one true fan of the books. It's like, oh yeah, this is a great idea. Aslan should have always been portrayed as a female lion.
No, it's uniformly in opposition. Yes, yeah. It is. Now, Zach, that position is already pretty tough. And we actually went over some of that in our video game episode with Cap Stewart and Peter Franson last year, where you were saying, and I think it is true, that money has changed hands in some cases by advocacy groups, maybe even NGOs, non-governmental organizations, possibly taxpayer funded ultimately, in order to influence the development and storytelling craft of video games. So this isn't just people at a little company or even big company out there making their creative decisions with video games completely independent of outside influences. Not only are they getting ideas from social media and some of this fake social science and all of this, but in some cases, they're literally being paid to get certain types of characters into video games. So steel man this position. I'm going to try to do it. Is this happening here? We don't know. But my point is that it doesn't have to be. This ideology, this sort of casualness, flippancy with the creativity of the original source material, it's often caught, not taught. You don't have to have some communist infiltrator in the studio who's literally got a red star on his hat telling people about Marxism and the dialectic and all of that. All you need to do is have memes, guys. That's all you need. And all you need here is this terrible, toxic meme that says, hey, what does it matter? If you find the right person to play the character, like, does it really matter if they're male or female? And no, this is not the time to be doing that. Absolutely, it matters. And here's another issue that I want to make. Well, let me step back and with something a little more positive here. Got to season this with salt, okay? It is a great positive sign that this news got out the way that it did. Almost certainly someone on the inside leaked this in an effort to stop it. Yeah. Because otherwise it would have gotten further and either never went anywhere. But the fact that they leaked it means, oh no, it's serious. And so someone leaked it to this one little website, and then others went after the news and they got confirmation. So someone in the production doesn't want this to happen. But we don't know who. But generally, when people leak this stuff, it's because they want to head that off, whether it's in politics or in entertainment. So this is good. This means that there's some people who don't want this, but this also means it's bad enough that the person had to take such a drastic measure, because people can get fired for breaking their non-disclosure agreements like that and leaking to the press. Or maybe it was an intentional leak in order to see how people react to this idea, and
gauge
now
the
they
audiences.
know.
Yeah.
Now they know. Just I'm like, did you really need to leak a story to figure that out? You did not.
And there can be all kinds of like counter espionage things going around. Like maybe this was never true, and it was to find who the this is a classic thing that the CIA does, where they they seed like fake stories to see which one gets leaked, and then they know who the leaker is, right? Because they know who they told the fake thing to. I love to imagine these things. I love to imagine an even really optimistic thing, which is that Greta Gerwig herself leaked it because she's like, they're taking away control of this. I really do love Narnia. I promise. I'm not trying to subvert it, but my hands are tied, and now I have to go to the news.
I like that fan theory, because then we get to defend the director. Then we get to say, okay, well,
I would love that to be true.
Yeah, because she seemed to have a great take on the respect for Lewis, and then understanding his nonfiction. And I don't know if she's a Christian. I doubt it, but someone who grows up Catholic, who has some respect for the ideas of their childhood, is the best possible get that you can get sometimes when it comes to these big franchises.
I want to know who. I want to know who is pushing for this. They should step forward, get on a microphone, defend this decision. Don't hide behind whatever bureaucracy. Make your case for it, and then be educated, because like you're wrong. But this happens so much in entertainment. There's someone pulling the strings, and then someone has to take the fall for it and be the scapegoat. They don't want to be that open and honest about it. A lot of people are going to say, well, why does this matter? It's just a cartoon line. It's just a movie or whatever. And we'll get into that in a minute. But I want to say, this is, for a lot of people, this is going to be their first exposure to Narnia. And I'm talking about like younger audiences that didn't watch the trilogy that came out about 20 years ago through Disney and Walden. This is going to be how they see Narnia. And it's going to be really confusing if they hear that Aslan is otherwise. And by the way, it would be just as much of a problem if like Polly was cast as a boy, or Diggory cast as a girl, or Uncle Andrew was switched to a woman. Like you can't change a character like that. And now you can change certain demographic details, sure, but to fundamentally change who a character is, you're no longer telling the story of Narnia. It's just something else at that point.
I would be almost as irritated if they had floated the rumor that Aslan would be voiced by like a famously high-pitched male actor, like somebody who did not have the range for this character. We would be like almost as certain, I think, that this would be fake news.
Right.
But so it's not even really about a woman, except that with the war against, as you said, Zach, the way that God has created men and women different, and men generally with deeper voices and women generally with lighter voices, it's perfectly fine to expect that to be reflected in a world made by a faithful Christian scholar and a gentleman, who, by the way, himself wrote so faithfully about the differences between the sexes. And so to mess with this, like, I understand, like, some people, maybe there was a few in our audience, maybe there's a few commentators, they're in the drastic minority, but I would understand people going, oh, why you gotta like launch a culture war about you culture warriors? Like, you need to stop being such a culture war.
Oh, we're the warriors. Mm-hmm,
no,
sure.
here's the point. Whoever looked the other way with this casting idea, they're the culture warriors, y'all.
Exactly. Yep.
This is what we're up against sometimes. It's either people trying to intentionally subvert good things, like the masculine divinity of a Christ supposal in Narnia, Aslan, or they're just foolish and don't have a clue what they're doing. But either way, I'm with you, Zach. Like, that kind of person needs to either stop trying to make decisions at all in this production, or they need to go. I don't know, Zach, is this worse than anything Kathleen Kennedy ever did?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's okay.
It's a franchise I certainly care more for than Star Wars.
I mean, frankly, it feels sacrilegious, right? Which seems crazy to say about a children's, story, but it is and it isn't Jesus who they're trying to change. I think they know that this is Jesus. This is a supposal of Jesus, as you said. It's not an allegory for Jesus.
Even atheists know that. Oh, it's a magic Jesus lion. They'll
Right,
put in
right.
the same as the God Father in the sky, that kind of stuff. They make fun of it.
It's really on the level of Jesus Christ Superstar or something like that, where they want to fundamentally change who Christ is through a story. And yeah, by making Christ female, well, then it's no longer the same person. And so by making Aslan a female lion, it's no longer a direct connection to Jesus. I really think that's what this is about at the core, because all the articles I've read about this, they don't want to use the name Jesus. This is a test you can always look at in entertainment news, in just cable news, any kind of mainstream publications. It's almost impossible to see someone say the name Jesus on air or in an article. In all these articles, it's like, oh, he's supposed to represent God, or he's a divine figure.
Yeah, this generalizing language.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's always about that. Frankly, I think it's always this kind of spiritual battle more than any cultural political stuff.
Yeah, it's not a political issue here, folks. It may feel political just because it's conflict, and conflict feels political to people. That is, I personally don't like it. And if you want to sit this one out and let the Warriors go to work, that's perfectly fine. A lot of people are busy. You got kids to take care of. You got tax season coming up if you're in the United States. I get it. But we'll talk in the next chapter about what you can do. If you want to do, by the way, what any other fandom has done, whether Christian, religious, secular, atheist, whatever. If you don't think Sonic should look that way, if you don't think Arwen should have gone a fighting at a Helm's Deep, then you write in or you post your comments on social media. You make your voice heard. That's perfectly acceptable. And in this case, I think a little bit more of a righteous cause than normal. We'll talk about that in chapter 3. First, however, sponsor 3, Inheritance by J.A. Webb. Speaking of dystopian governments taking over or dystopian ideologies, Inheritance is a new novel coming out, I think it's a few weeks from now. Oh, that's right. That's in May. It's book 2 of the Seekers series. Here's the description. The order has been betrayed. The hunters have been loosed. Father Curtis has forsaken his vows. He has left the order and joined the Seekers, a hidden rebellion dedicated to uncovering the truth long buried by the global church. But walking away from the order does not mean escaping its reach. When word spreads that a copy of the true text, the original 39 books of the Creator, has surfaced on the far side of the world, Curtis, Professor Ruel, and Philip embark on a desperate mission. If they can retrieve the artifact, it could change everything. If they fail, the truth will be lost forever. The war for truth has begun, and the order will not suffer heretics to live. If you like stories of faith, defiance, and the battle against unseen tyranny, you'll love Inheritance, book 2 of the Seekers series. That is coming out in a few weeks. You can get more information at Amazon or at jawebauthor.com for Inheritance by J.A. Webb. Webb with 2 B's. Chapter 3. Well, speaking of resistance and revolution and all that blood-stirring stuff that the youngins really like to think about, rising up against the tyrants, I just want to hedge a little bit here. Y'all, these aren't tyrants. They're just sort of hapless apes. All right. But even an ape in Narnia can do great damage when he puts a lion skin on a silly donkey. So show some compassion when you reach out to these folks, because you will, right? They may not be apes. They may not be Calormans who are invading the place, hiding their scimitars. They may just be a silly donkey who literally got the lion skin pulled over his eyes. And whether or not it's a silly donkey or someone in collusion with the Calormans or the Calormans themselves, no foolish or wicked adaptation can ever steal away the true Narnia. And now, that is my example, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, the 2010 movie, which I'm sure improves, believe it or not, in comparison to whatever might be happening here. But the Dawn Treader movie was pretty silly, you guys. It actually did nerf a lot of the themes of the book. It was very man-centered. Aslan was nerfed. Hey, at least he was a male and he sounded like Liam Neeson. But it didn't really matter when all Aslan does is barely show up to nudge the plot along and is not the center of the world, even if you don't see him on screen a whole lot. Rest between the paws of the true Aslan, though. That's what they say. I think it's in the Silver Chair, that all the world is crumbling around them. The underworld is coming apart at the seams because the Emerald Witch's enchantments are being undone. And I think it's brilliant who says, whether we live or die, Aslan will be our true lord. And if we believe he's not a tame lion, then this is, of course, a metaphor for Christ. If we believe that we follow a risen, absolutely in control, not tame Jesus, then he does have everything in control. He means even this nonsense for our good. Maybe it will draw more attention to the project. Maybe it will purge an element, a progressive element in the production, and set it more on the straight and narrow. But I wouldn't just sit back and wait for Jesus to do it. Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, and talk about more holy deeds than this, knowing that God is at work in you. So I suggest, as you rest, take action. And NarniaWeb had posted this very helpful story. Yeah, NarniaWeb, we'll have all these links in the show notes, of course. Glumpuddle again, saying, make your voices heard. They show the illustration of one of the Pevensies blowing Susan's trumpet on the front, which is a lovely little hint. And all it does is present the names of some of the producers of this production: Mark Gordon, Amy Pascal, Vincent Sieber, and some contact info at the C.S. Lewis Company, as well as Netflix Public Relations. So their email addresses on here. There are mailing addresses should you want to sign a stamped envelope with only good ingredients in there, of course. And there's some social media tags too, so you can actually go and tag these folks and just let them know exactly what you're thinking about this, with respect and honor and decorum. Guys, go out there and swashbuckle. Live like a Narnian, as Joe Rigney has said. Show that you are going to walk with a swagger in your step and joy in your heart, and you don't give a fig for anyone who won't. Don't be like the residents of Tashbaan, who take themselves so seriously. Say what you need to say with joviality. Respect the people as the bearers of God's image, but also the bearers of a lot of stupid decisions, but also let them know clearly and firmly that you're not going to pay for this. I've seen people canceling their Netflix subscriptions. Apparently they still had them, so I'm glad they had something to actually do. People are like, that's it, I'm canceling Netflix right now. And I go, like, even I go, and I'm radicalized about this. I go, whoa, hold on. Now, Netflix made a darn good One Piece season 1, and they didn't terribly mess up the Avatar: The Last Airbender live action. Certainly not at the Shyamalan level. So keep your purchasing power until they announce something official. It could be that this is part of the bubbling of the dumb ideas there, and this is an especially bad bubble that needs to be popped. But if they do move forward with this or any other similarly insipid decisions, yes, absolutely, use your purchasing power. Don't be taken for a patsy by these folks. Refuse to pay, tell them why, and then watch something else, read something else, and enjoy that way more than you would have hate watched this.
There's a lot of great discussion happening on NarniaWeb. If you engage with this topic on social media, you'll see a lot of comments. I would just say a word of caution here, which is beware anyone who's trying to talk you out of doing something about this.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a minority voices, but they will get inside a particular kind of personality, won't they, Zach?
Yes. So we've given our disclaimers, right? Like, all we know right now is the rumors and sort of the behind the scenes leaks and whatever. So we don't know the official word. Okay. I understand that there's a type of person that's like, well, I don't want to get tricked. I don't want to say something and then have to walk it back because I got fooled by a fake news.
I don't want to be part of a culture war. What will the world say? The world is watching a particular kind of world, by the way.
Yes, right. And I think that's the more insidious motivation is like, well, I don't want to look bad to some group of cool kids that I respect more than whatever. Frankly, there's a certain type of Christian out there that is cozying up to the world and doesn't want to criticize the world too much because, that might jeopardize their employment possibilities in the future. So, anyone who's not at least a little upset about this, frankly, I don't view them as trustworthy. And I may even go so far as to say, if anyone approves and celebrates Aslan's gender swapping and calls himself a believer, he may have denied the faith.
I was about to say, let him be anathema. Purely as a joke, folks. Some people are silly donkeys. They put a lion skin on you. It doesn't belong on you. It's not a good look. Take it off.
There's the objection, well, we're always going to have the books. And well, yes, but if the books matter to us, we should speak up when people are virtually burning the books. Because what's going to get someone's attention more, right? A series on Netflix that's advertised everywhere, or books that they may not take the time to read. So this is, like, in a sense, destroying the books, at least in terms of overshadowing them. Now, yes, we could all just cancel Netflix. We could just talk about the books and the audiobooks and all that kind of stuff. And yes, we also need to celebrate good art, and I'll get into that in just a minute. But we should speak up loudly. I mean, this is the fandom that we care about. I mean, we always joke in this podcast, when did you invite Aslan into your heart? So it's okay to be upset about this. It's okay. Yes, let's speak with gentleness and respect. All of that is still true, but beware of the people that gaslight you into not being concerned about this, and that, they're actually more concerned that you're concerned. And this is a whole other psychological game that's happening out there. And it's really disturbing when I see Christians do this. Stephen, I don't know if you remember this rumor. This was probably 5 or 6 years ago.
If it's a Narnia rumor, I remember it.
Okay. There was and I can't find it right now. So if we find this, we'll put it in the show notes. But there was apparently some conversation Douglas Gresham had with the studio where he said, well, they wanted to make Jill like a feminist icon, a girl boss or something like that.
Oh yeah, that was the Joe Johnston adaptation of The Silver Chair, which would have followed in the continuity after Voyage of the Dawn Treader.
Okay, so was this pre-Netflix then? Was this
definitely pre-Netflix, yes. Okay. There was a whole original idea. Joe Johnston, who directed The Rocketeer and Captain America: The First Avenger. This was going to be his final film, and it ended up languishing in development hell and then never getting off the ground.
Which, again, would totally change that story, because Jill is the newcomer to Narnia. Eustace is the guy who's been around the block, and he's having to guide Jill a little bit now. Obviously, they both have to work through a lot of issues, but it wouldn't make sense for Jill to be the expert in that case, because she's literally not. She's the newcomer. And I remember the fans talking about that at the time and just saying, yeah, what a weird version of Narnia that would be. And that wasn't fundamentally changing any of the characters. So
at least Jill was still a girl. Yes.
Right. Like, so we've gone from that to now a female Aslan. It's crazy. And I really think that this is a shot across the bow. I can't see any other possibility that this is the creators of the show, whoever the unnamed, person in the smoke-filled room that decided this.
Green smoke-filled room. It's the lady of the green kirtle going thrum on the little instrument.
They had to have seen something like that happen, right? That controversy with the Joe Johnston adaptation. They have to know that this would be so much of a bigger change than that. It's like, if they would change this, they would change everything. And anything and everything is fair game if you change Aslan. So this isn't a minor detail. In other words, this is like a core detail that's going to set the course for all other details in the story.
Right. And that's why it needs to be headed off. Not because this is, oh no, if they do this, then it could lead to that. Like, no, they're doing that. Like, they skipped all the way to the bottom of the slippery slope, like at the first go. Or have they? Now, Zach, the more we talk, the more I realize that I'm guessing this is not a Greta Gerwig decision. I'm going out on a limb, and I'll say, you know what? I'll bet this is not her fault. As feminist as people may think she is, like, there were different takes on Barbie and all of that. And I know some people liked her Little Women. I liked it okay, but I don't even remember the book that well, so I'm probably not the best judge of it. Some people don't like her adaptation choices. And of course, there will be some adaptations for a film. And yet, we haven't even talked about it this much, but The Magician's Nephew actually is the most modern feeling of the Chronicles of Narnia, because you've got a multiverse. You've got kind of a more equitable distribution of main character energy between Diggory and Polly, although it is still very much Diggory's story and needs to remain so, because the story explores these Venus themes of loss and motherhood and nurturing and creation and life-giving. That is just fundamental to the DNA of the story. You've got to get it right. So it's a very feminine feeling story that is around a main character who is a boy growing up near the turn of the 20th century. That's so important.
And who's not a perfect character.
No, absolutely not.
Diggory has quite I mean, not to spoil it, but like Diggory makes a horrible decision that unleashes
it's basically original
Hades.
sin.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And oddly enough, Polly really doesn't have that much of a story arc. And so for one, an adaptation would need to give her one. And a wise creator, Gerwig or whoever's writing the script or whatever, would almost certainly by now, unless you're completely foolish, need to give Polly some sort of journey that isn't just the stereotypical girl boss who had it right all along and the arc is with everyone else around her. Like, that almost describes the book. Like Polly, I like Polly a lot, but she doesn't really go on a character journey like Diggory does. So an adaptation may need to flesh that out. I might want to meet the cabbie earlier. I might want to meet Mrs. Cabby earlier, Helen. Like I want to get to know Frank and Helen a little bit more before they're all dragged into proto Narnia. And then, spoiler alert, made the first king and queen of Narnia. I love those people. I'd love to meet them earlier. In fact, if I were doing the script, I would introduce Helen earlier by having her be the maid at the Ketterly's house who ends up being married to the cabbie. All right, that would be my little script writing judo move there, where it's in the spirit of the book. It's in the spirit of the book in order to give you more of what the book gave you, not less.
Mm-hmm.
But to cast a female playing Aslan, whether or not the character on screen has a mane, that is fundamentally against the spirit of Narnia. Guys, let them know.
I mean, Liam Neeson is still alive. Like I don't see the problem.
Liam Neeson's going on to a Naked Gun comedy, Bulgarian reboot. I don't see him getting back into the lion costume anytime soon. I'd cast Idris Elba. Idris Elba would be fantastic.
He would be great. Yeah.
Or Kevin Michael Richardson. Someone else said, shoot, go to the old Benedict Cumberbatch well, get him back in again.
That would be good.
Those are men. Yep. Those are men, doesn't matter what color they are, who have fantastic voices. And that's really what the point is. A man with a fantastic stentorian voice. You've got to hear that wild lion, Narnian lion energy there. That's who Aslan is. That's who we need.
Well, I said a minute ago that we also need to celebrate good art. And there's a very particular adaptation of Narnia that we should all celebrate. And I'm talking about the stage production of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, performed by Logos Theater.
I hear good things.
They're currently playing at the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C., and we had their executive director, Noah Stratton, on the podcast almost exactly a year ago. It was episode 208. So to you, our listener, I encourage you to go listen to that episode. If you have a chance to get to DC to see that show, definitely take that chance. I was trying desperately to make this happen this month with my oldest daughter, who's really into theater. Unfortunately, we weren't able to connect the dots and make it happen. But I'm very sad by that. We're going to try to go next season, and a lot of good things that Logos is planning for the future. You can hear more about that episode. Go support them. Support the good adaptations of this material.
And by the way, the Focus on the Family radio theater adaptation of Narnia is also wonderful. Now, Sir David Suchet plays Aslan, and in some of the earlier episodes, frankly, he kind of overacts a little bit, but once it levels off, he is a fantastic Aslan, and he's kind of the prototypical Aslan in my heart. Now, a lot of people, they have fond memories of Liam Neeson, who does perfectly fine in the Disney Walden movies, and then even with what little they gave him in The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. But Sir David Suchet, I think, is just the best Aslan performance so far. Guys, why stop there? Why would you not take the opportunity to try to one-up them? Absolutely should one-up them and encourage. I think, folks, if you're going to write in, and you will, right? Give some suggestions. I don't think that's fine. It just gives them an idea of what you would actually want to hear. By the way, another action item here is, Zach, you mentioned earlier that Gresham had been ill, and I was trying to remember, was that a rumor I heard? Was this background info, or was this actually public? It was public. Glumpuddle again. He actually published back on August 2024, update from Douglas Gresham family at Narnia Web. And all we have is this quote, and there's been no update since that I've seen. Dad is at home in Malta being cared for by family. We are unsure how the illness will progress from here, but he is not expected to make a recovery. The family is asking for prayer and privacy at this time. The C.S. Lewis business, with all its commitments, will continue as per normal. That's all we know. And like I said, there's been no update. So pray for Douglas Gresham, especially if it is something terminal. He is an elderly chap. He has literally dedicated the book to him in The Horse and His Boy. He knew C.S. Lewis. He was his stepson. He's a faithful Christian saint. I once ambushed him at homeschool conference. I probably shouldn't have done that, but I'm glad I got to shake his hand. And that was it. Might get to shake his hand again in the New Heavens and New Earth. But pray for him. Pray for whoever else is the custodian of the C.S. Lewis Company, that they'd make wise decisions, that they would push back on this with the gravitas that Gresham had, and that this whole thing would blow over, and that the person who tried this stunt would learn his or her lesson and not do anything like this in the future, for Narnia, and for Aslan.
Well, to you, our listener, what's your reaction to this Narnia casting rumor? Do you think this is what they're really planning? Do you think this is some kind of trap or some kind of trick? Or are you feeling like Charlie Brown, always getting the football taken away because every time you want to see a faithful adaptation, they yank it away? What are you going to do about it? Are you going to write in? How are you responding to this? Send us your thoughts on any of these questions to podcast@lorehaven.com. You can always tag us on social media. Make sure to go to our show notes to find where you can respond. But send us a note and let us know how you're doing with this.
Yes, especially if it's on a scale of this is absolutely most bizarre and terrible to I am radicalized. That's the kind of response I expect to see here. Well, we've already been talking about the terribleness of this, but let's go a little bit more positive for our next episode. So next on Fantastical Truth, take 2. We were going to do it this week, but now we're doing it next week. Fallen is Disney the Great. The mouse has become a dwelling place for cringe, a haunt for every unclean secularist agenda, a haunt for every flopbuster franchise, a haunt for every unclean and detestable remake. Yes, we know the line. We've even said the lines. But after we have now faced fairy stale adaptations and flippant super capers, not to mention the adrift vessels of stalled wars, how could we, Zach and I, given the Infinity Gauntlet, snapping our fingers, help restore Disney? Restoration. This is what Aslan did for Narnia several times. We like restoration. It is such a deeply Christian concept to take what was ruined by sin and corruption and grief and death, and then undo that. To get rid of winter. This is Aslan's doing. This is spring. Your winter has gone away and it's never coming back. So as we enter spring, celebrate a new season of life that our true lion, Christ our Savior, has given us, and oppose efforts to make these kinds of death works. This too is a life-giving exercise as we continue to seek and find our Savior's fantastical truth.